where it looks like we've already had one draw. So I think this is literally the first short draw of the tournament. It looks like Grandmaster Alexei Sorkin and I am Victor Matavishin are tired. That's what my guess is. They want to take an early night and go relax. So let's just take a quick look at this game, and then we'll see. So we have a Sicilian, a Najdorf, and Bishop G5, which is the most complex of all the variations. The I believe it's the Richter Rouser. Let's see what's going on here. Queen E2, H6. Okay, some. Wow. So on move 10, white castles and just sacks the knight on D4, but I guess you can't really take it because of E5. That must be the right move. Yeah. This looks like that would also lead to destruction for black, so this must be already super well known. Well trodden territory. And oops. My fault. I was adjusting so I could see my chat here. So I can see when people popped in. And so what happens here? Queen C7 and then knight B3. Wow. Sack on D7. This just must already be super well known. This sack. And then a repetition. So it looks like, yeah, white just planned this super quick line. I wonder if Matavishin knew that Sorokin played this variation and played it intentionally to get the draw out of him. Let's real quick, what I think we should do is look at where Matavishin is in the tournament. So just push the back button real quick. Where does that put him? Okay, so that is a very, very well planned out draw, because Matavishin now has 3 out of 4. And that's a very strong score. It's putting him in line for a norm for sure. So he definitely wants a GM norm, and drawing one of the higher rated players in the tournament is definitely a good thing. So, oh man, my hair is crazy today. Hold on one second. Let's fix this side. No viewers yet. Let's go. Well, if you're watching in the after the games are over. So anyway, let's go on to the next game. We have Grandmaster Segmed versus I am Griffith, International Master Griffith, and we have a pretty advanced position. So got an end game here. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 to 5. Black has 6 pawns, white has 5. And black also has this bishop. The rook is well placed on the 7th rank for white. And the black rook is a little boxed out of the position, but not for too long. If this knight ever moves, it does look like, this rook could infiltrate. So, yeah, I mean, I can't say I really know what's going on here. But at first look, obviously, black looks better because they have the extra pawn. White has the weak e2 pawn. And with pawns on opposite sides of the board, the bishop is clearly stronger. So let's ask the genie in a bottle, the Stockfish 14 Plus NNUE, which just means it's a cloud engine. And like we said, black has a slight advantage, 0.6. So not huge, some work to do for white, but white is better, and I would always prefer to be better in a position than to be worse. So let's see, what do we have next? Okay, now the player of the tournament to watch. I am Andy Woodward versus Grandmaster Armin Mckaylan. And it looks like Andy is worse. I did catch the engine evaluation just by accident. But if I were to rate which king is safer, and it definitely looks like the white king. Even though this bishop does appear to be strong, but let's see, count the material real quick. 6 pawns versus 7 pawns for black. Okay, interesting. So black has a small material advantage, but this pawn on d6 is not very good, so I have a feeling we'll see something like rook d3 at some point soon to double up an attack. Unless trading would make sense, but it doesn't quite make sense to me here. And the times are 23 minutes to 19 minutes. Let's take a look. Yeah, black is winning. So, okay. Yeah, so black is winning. White is losing here. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know if I initially said white was winning, but not winning, because look at the knight on e1, look at this bishop, look at the extra pawn. And black's king is exposed like I was looking at earlier, but I guess this knight is so far from even attacking. If this knight, say, were on f5, then that would be a much stronger square, right? f5 would be really strong here, attacking everywhere in the position. But on e1, it's really bad. So Andy looks like he's in some trouble. I think this is the first game I've seen him in any actual trouble. So let's see how he handles it. Will he be able to come back? Okay, he just played knight c2. Okay, that doesn't really seem great. That seems like it's pretty terrible, but how to continue as black. So I saw real quick that rook f6 was an idea. You certainly don't want to take, because taking would bring this knight to be guarding d5. My arrows! So that doesn't make any sense. And yeah, it doesn't really make any sense then. So we'll see what happens here. Let's go to the next game. Okay, we have a very advanced endgame here. Wow, we have Schlatenko, international master Robert Schlatenko, who won last round, all the way down to 1:30 here. He's certainly better. That's the queen versus the rook and the bishop. But does black have a pretty strong fortress type position? It all depends on whether g4 is going to work here, right? I mean, g4 seems like the obvious move to play for the win. Yeah, I don't really quite know. Yeah, I don't really quite know here. Let's double check with the Silicon Monster. Wow. Black is better in this position. That is wild. I mean, you kind of feel it when you see that this pressure on a A2. I think that's what I was missing when I initially looked at the position. And then these pawns are just avalanching, right? And this king is actually super safe. Wow. What a wild position. How did it end up here? Let's check real quick. Let's just tab through. I'm curious where Robert went really wrong. Okay, Stearman really had this opening prepared. And then it's pretty equal around here. Oh, and then Robert just gives up the D pawn here. And he's just crushing, actually. He's crushing at this position. So he went from totally equal position and in black castle now is wrong apparently. After knight e5, queen d8. This sequence, Robert is just absolutely crushing. So what went wrong? How is he so much worse now? He missed here. He missed knight takes f6 check. How? I'm so confused. I mean, Robert's super strong, and this looks like it's just absolutely crushing because the d4 bishop is pinned. Knight takes f6, pawn takes f6, queen h5. That might be what he missed because that would threaten a mate here. And then, or h3. One or the other. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. And then rook fd8 and bishop e3. That's a hard move to play. Wait, what? And white doesn't just take on h7 there? That's really strange. So, yeah, I mean, that's super computery. So here Robert plays queen h3, which misses the chance. Apparently it misses the chance. And then Stearman sacrifices the queen here. Really nice, actually. Gets a lot for it. And then Robert just I think Robert probably just missed that he could sack the queen here. Yeah, Robert just missed that this attack wouldn't be good. Yeah, and it actually just doesn't work, which is crazy. I'm actually kind of blown away that this actually worked for black. And now black is crushing here. Very nice sacrifice by International Master Stearman. These pawns are just monsters now. They're just winning. So it looks like International Master Slatenko is on the ropes here. So let's move to the next game. Okay, Kostya has been having a huge problem this tournament. So FIDE Masters Thurman is going after him for sure. And Kostya looks busted just right off the bat. Poor guy. He's not having a good tournament. So International Master Kostya Konstantin Kavutsky. They have his name reversed for some silly reason. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm so sad that he's playing so poorly. You know, I mean, sometimes you just don't feel it. So hopefully he can bounce back, but he looks like he's much worse here. He's down the exchange. He doesn't have this outside passer, but it's pretty far behind. And is this holdable? It might be holdable. I'm not sure. If you're in the chat, tell me if you think it's holdable. I'm not sure. The computer doesn't think so. It's 3.9, so that's pretty terrible. If you're just joining us, this is Coach Q. We're analyzing the Hollywood Chess Grandmaster section of the Norm Classic. Going for some Grandmaster norms here. And Queen E3 looks a little inaccurate. Like the queen was super well placed on. Oh, no. Even the best moves say the queen should come back. So maybe just attacking the H-pawn is the right way to go. Okay. So that's the right idea, but I think that allows the pawn to move. Why can't you just push the pawn now? Because at H4, H5, oh my gosh. But H4, H5, Rook B6. Why can't you just keep pushing? Because the rook can come behind the pawn, wow. And then threaten this kind of back rank stuff. Queen can come back to H6. Wow. That's pretty wild. Isaac's in the house. Wow, a really talented student of mine is in the chat. Thanks for coming, Isaac. I appreciate that. Thanks for watching the show. Here, Isaac, the outside passer, is not actually doing much because this rook can hold it. So this is just analysis, so I'll refresh to go back to the actual position, which has just disappeared on me. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, this looks really busted for black, honestly, being down the exchange. And if this pawn were all the way up on a4, I might believe in the position a little bit more. But that's going to be hard to hold. Um, yeah, thanks for joining, Isaac. I appreciate that. Let's look at the... We just looked through the Grandmaster games. We'll come back to that shortly. Let's look at the International Master games from the International Master Norm Classic from Hollywood, California. Just joining us, all of these games are presented to you by 1000 GM, the really amazing nonprofit that's starting all these tournaments and getting them going so that players in America can earn their GM and IM norms. Okay, let's go to the International Master Norm section, which Grandmaster Batoon, the computer says he's run out of time, but I don't think so because there's an increment in this game. So unless they agreed to a draw right here, that could be possible. This position looks pretty dead drawn because white can always give the bishop for this pawn, and this opposite colored bishop endgame is just completely dead drawn. So yeah, they must have already agreed to a draw here, or it's just a computer error. So let's go to the second game. So FIDE Master Ruyang Yan versus International Master Aaron Grobinski. Grobinski is a Southern California homegrown talent. He's very strong I believe from San Diego. Not 100%, but I believe he's from there. So let's take a look at what's happening. It's a wild position. So white has the bishop pair, but black has the outside passer, like you're talking about, Isaac. Look at that. We've got the outside passer ready to run, ready to go. The only question is, can white put pressure on this king? That would be the compensation, if they can. Otherwise, this thing is running. Oh, yes, it looks like, Isaac, good point. 5 minutes on the clock for white here. I think it's clear that they're losing. International Master Grobinski is winning 42 minutes. Let's take a look at Silicon Monster. Yep, black is definitely winning in this position. -3, so pretty strong position for the second player for International Master Grobinski. It's a pretty simple plan. Is there anything that white can do to stop it? I mean, I really don't see anything, honestly. Like, this rook is boxed out. It can't even get back to get in front of the pawn. I think they're going to have to give the bishop for the pawn at some point. Yeah, bishop takes e6 and then a3. Bishop takes a3, knight takes a3, and that's just lights out. I think white is dead lost here. So let's go to the next game. We have International Master Alexander Ostrovsky, who I got a great interview of. So if you want to check it out in the videos, look for International Master Ostrovsky. And he gave me a very nice interview, very fun. So check that one out for sure. Let's see what is happening here. We have a super locked up position. So this is a really good example of a position where all the pawns in the center are pretty locked, pretty stuck. I guess white could break at some point, but then the e4 pawn is very weak. And black has these knights, and white has the bishop pair, but the bishop pair is not as good here. So it's a bunch of trade-offs. This knight is not well placed on a5, so that's one of the key factors you should look for here, is whether, you know, all the minor pieces are well placed. This bishop is not very good at all. Actually, it's pretty close to garbage, because even if they went bishop f3, bishop h5, this bishop could just drop back and say, I refuse Oh, then he could get outside the pawn chain. That's an idea for white here. This knight is poorly placed as well, so I think both knights are just pretty badly placed. That's a trade-off here. I think I would give this position pretty equal. Let's see. Oh, look at that. It's zeros all the way. Zeros all the way to depth 19 and counting. So, yeah. It's a dead equal position because nothing's happening. I mean, both sides can't really make any progress here. And any change in the structure probably benefits the side that doesn't change the structure. So, like, a change in structure would be bishop takes c5. This would not be a great change in structure because I think black would take, oh, not with the b pawn, but with the d pawn. And that would open up an attack on the d pawn. And if, say, white wants to play d4, well, then the e4 pawn will become weaker later. We could take probably at some point, or even just run away with the knight. Probably taking. Yeah, this is a very interesting position. But you're right, Isaac. The time, though, Isaac says the time. Yes, 3 minutes to 25 minutes. That's a big time difference, actually. But in a locked position like this, it's actually a lot easier to play with a time disadvantage because even small inaccuracies aren't as consequential. Smaller inaccuracies in a more open position can mean massive tactical changes. Here, there's no really big tactical changes, so I think white will hold fine here. We'll see that in a few minutes. Let's take a look at the next game. Here we've got Hanxing Li versus FIDE Master Mighty. FIDE Master Mighty gave me a nice interview as well, so go check that one out in the videos. He did a really nice one. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe because 1000 GM is going to be bringing you tournaments pretty much every week of the year. So be prepared to be amazed by how strong these players are. They find great stuff. If you review this material, they're basically giving you free lessons by playing these games for you. You know, obviously they're playing them for themselves to try to earn titles. But yeah, they're basically like free lessons because the content is amazing. The moves they play, the ability to actually play the top level engine line in a lot of positions is absolutely incredible. So rook d4 was just played here. What is going on? Black looks significantly better, even though he's down 2-4-6, 2-4-5. One pawn, but these pawns don't mean much. And it looks like black is winning back a pawn no matter what. And probably looking for more here. Mighty is playing very well. Playing very, very well in this tournament. So yeah, I just turned on the Silicon Monster and black's like -1. So the funny, amazing thing about chess is that you can be down a pawn but still be completely winning, and the engine thinks you're up a pawn because it's seeing in the future. Sorry, I just trying to get some water here. My very kind wife is looking for the water bottle that I displaced. Okay, this is just a little bit better for black. But do remember in these endgames, -1 does not always mean dead loss. So there are chances here for white to save the position. But I don't know. This knight is really bad on b1 as well. So practically speaking, this is pretty tough to play as well. Okay, let's go to the next game. We've got one of the main organizers, candidate master Rushawn Mahajan, playing a very good tournament so far, and he did a great job helping put stuff together, get the venue, get a good price on the venue. Just amazing talent, this kid. Rushawn Mahajan. He's only 16 and he has his own chess company. So think about that, everybody. Be inspired by Rushawn. He's moving and shaking, and he's trying to improve his rating because he's a candidate master. So he wants to get to 2300. Obviously, he wants an IM norm as well. Might as well get it. Go get the IM norm, even if you're not IM strength yet or rating. So let's see what's happening in this game. We have an end game. So Isaac has got me on the time hawk. Isaac, our time hawk, says the time though from the last game. So let's look at the time though from this game: 6 minutes and 40 seconds to 31 minutes. So even bigger time discrepancy. So yeah, this is I don't know. This could be a big problem, but it is an end game, and White does appear to be better. I don't know if I can call it winning because the two extra pawns, the B and D pawns, are weak. So, for example, the king can come in, but also this rook can take the H pawn, and that could be really dangerous. Like, I could see black winning both the D and B pawn, but losing because this H pawn just becomes a monster. Okay, black does take the B pawn. We can keep it here a little bit because Rushawn's going to move quick here. Okay, he does play rook H7 like I thought. Attack the H5 pawn, and he lets black take. To me, that's a good trade. These two pawns were very weak, and obviously the H5 pawn was weak too. But now White gets the passed H pawn. Okay, should we turn on the Silicon Monster now? Should we ask him? White has a slight advantage. Yes, White has simple plans. That's correct, Isaac. That gives him a practical chance here. But I think it's a theoretical draw. Because Stockfish 14 NNUE, the cloud engine at depth 30, says plus 0.6. And that usually indicates a draw. Let's just tab through a few of the moves to see why. Maybe it's the sheer activity of black's king. That could cause a problem here. Isaac says, does time pressure have a big effect late game in these tournaments? Oh, yes, it does, Isaac. Time pressure can cause you to completely collapse after hours of work. So, in this game, I wouldn't say it's a big problem because, well, White has an advantage already, and it's already a hard endgame to win, and there's no losing chances here for White. I mean, if White ever loses this, then they really have to do some work on their endgame. At this level, they're not going to lose this position. This is either a win or a draw. But what was the other position where there was a massive time? This time advantage is huge, and the position is very complicated. But I believe this player, FIDE Master Jan, got in this position because Grobinski played the opening really, really well. Let's take a look real quick. So it's a win hour French. A pretty standard line. This line has been played a lot of times. Okay, and then White has an advantage of the opening. Okay, but apparently Black just knew how to play it better. Let's see. Where does he go wrong here? White's starting to go wrong here. Let's see. H4, G4. I mean, you really have to be comfortable with this position to understand that. So I can see why White's going to go wrong in this position. That's something you have to be very brave to play. Or you just have to be aware of those plans already pre-game. So White is just making small inaccuracies, but Black is not playing perfectly here either. Yeah, I I mean, bishop h3 is a natural move, but the computer hates it. So yeah, and white has been did have a problem here. So even there's time pressure here, Isaac. If you look, it's 18 minutes, 21 minutes to 50 minutes. So black was just like super well prepared for this opening, and really, frankly, just kind of blitzed it out. Um, and I don't know if the computer is saying he's losing earlier because it just hates the French defense. Because I don't know. That might be a thing. Like, the computer just doesn't like the French defense. Um, okay, so white goes for this pawn. Okay, just waste of complete tempo here. All right. So yeah, I think a lot of the problems here are coming from time pressure, because white at this point had 14 minutes, and then plays bishop c7, king e7, rook b1, and then after 98 goes back to b6. So that's like almost nonsensical. Like, he didn't have time to calculate this, because he's not playing bishop c7 if he calculated the fact that his knight would have to go back to b6. Um, Bishop d8 is the best move here, apparently. Uh, Not super intuitive, but I guess it keeps pressure on a5, and it would, if the rook comes back, you can go back to b6, and you don't lose the tempo on c7. Yeah, so he starts slipping here, and it looks like it is because of time pressure. So that's a really astute comment, Isaac, or a question. Time pressure does have a big effect in these games. Yeah, clearly time pressure there, and white is about to lose. So that was a very good question. Oh, and white actually just resigned, so black did win. All right, hold on. Let's go to live games. So let's take a look at the International Master Live games and see where they are. This one I will predict is likely a draw because of how active the king is. White's king is going to have trouble getting into this position. So that's why the outside passer is actually not that big of a deal here. It's more optical than anything. Okay, and then before we move on back to the Grandmaster games, it looks like Mighty is still just winning. Bishop with pawns on opposite sides, weak pawns, and black has almost no weaknesses. These pawns are actually super strong. So yeah, black is just winning here. Let's go to the Grandmaster games. How many games do we have left? Okay, so a couple games finished while we were talking. Oh, this one was already done earlier. This is a really interesting game I showed before, Isaac. If you want to go back after the video is done, where white basically played a forced line, completely forced, like 19 moves forced. They knew the variation, and basically forced Sorokin into a draw, which is crazy, and it's possible. That definitely doesn't happen at this level. Griffith and Segmed, Grandmaster Segmed and International Master Griffith, they agreed to a draw. Let's take a look. We saw this position here where black was, okay, you saw this. Yeah, black was better here, and then makes an inaccurate move here. My hips are bothering me a little bit. Ow. Okay. 1 second. So, but a4 is an inaccurate move, apparently. Rook d8, go on the open file. So yeah, I was talking about this earlier, that knight d6 is a possible threat here. So it makes sense that you would want to go rook d8. And also rook d8 is the open file because the knight is blocking. So, okay, oops, I went back to the beginning. So let's just see how it ended. What? Pushed the wrong button twice in a row. Okay, so white won that pawn. And then just good technique. The weak g4 pawn. Black can just attack it, and anytime white goes back to guard it, you just check the king again. Check. Attack the pawn. And there's no time for this pawn to run. Because if this pawn starts running, and you lose this pawn, This might be dangerous because, yeah, it's probably still equal, but I wouldn't risk it, right? Just take the draw. Okay, let's look here. The the 10-year-old international master. It says FIDE master here, but Andy is an international master. I got a very fantastic interview with him, so definitely go back and take a look at that one. Um, but take a look at that interview. He is just a brilliant kid, and he's already an international master with a 2486 rating. I don't know what his live rating is. Um, yes, Isaac, that was a forced repetition, correct? Yeah, in that last game. So let's see what is happening. We left off earlier in this game, so. Oh wow, Andy played f4 here. I assume King g1 would be the right idea. f4 looks really interesting. So Andy sacks a pawn to get his knight basically back into the position and activate this rook. So, yeah, I mean, Andy is insane. He's so good. Not insane, like crazy, but his skills are really high for his level. This is an odd way to play, though. But it is causing practical problems, so let's see. Wow. Honestly, Andy has made progress in this position in improving it, honestly. Maybe the king is just too weak, though. But rook e2 is not possible. This is what black would love to play. If black could play rook e2 here, then this might be really dangerous. But the knight on f4 is super well placed. I'm trying to take stock of this position, but it's like I think Andy has improved it. Yeah, he has improved it. It's only saying -2, -1.5. Earlier he was minus like 3 or 4 in this position. So back here he was like much worse. So I think he's improved his position quite a bit. We'll see if he can hold though. Yeah, exactly. So black is giving up pawns on the queen side and attacking, and in return they're getting an attack on the king. What is this plan? Rook d4 and coming around. Does that plan work? It looks pretty good to me. Okay, he played rook e1 instead. Well, let's also look at the time difference here. 20 minutes to 3 minutes. So, Andy is using his time very well, and it's benefiting him, right? He's able to salvage what looked like a losing position against Grandmaster Mckaylan. Um, wow, that's really surprising, honestly. Super surprising. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because Andy is a very young talent and his brain can move really quickly, right? Okay, let's. Well, okay, well, GM Mckaylan has 3 minutes, so we can stay here for a second while I take a swig of my water. Okay, rookie two, so that he's able to trade off. Okay, so I'm sorry, I wasn't. After while I was drinking, these moves were all played. So rookie one, knight d5, rookie two, king g2. So yeah, now with the knight blocking the bishop's power is blunted. I mean, the human moves in this position aren't quite there. I think this is actually pretty challenging to play as a person. Where should black grab pawns, or are you saying white? Trying to grab the d6 pawn? Well, the best move is rook e6 here. I saw it on the engine moves, so clearly grabbing pawns is a threat. Any other move, the game slips to almost equal territory. Rook e6 is basically a forced move. And the kind of move that you could miss with 2 minutes and 43 seconds on the clock. Very exciting. Very exciting. With FIDE master Andy Woodward, or international master. Yeah, white grabbing pawns is a threat. Yes, definitely a threat. So it should be dealt with by defending pawns. But then why rook e6? Why not just going this way? Is there bishop d5 on that in that line? Pawn takes d5. This rook is on pre. Check. King moves f3. Then rook e5. I'm doing this all with my brain. Rook e6. So if rook a6, bishop takes d5, pawn d5, and then the rook is on e6, so rook g6 check. King f3. Well, king f3 would allow rook g3, so king h2. Maybe that's why this position is pretty hard to play for black. I mean, sorry, for white, because the king can't activate. And then black can attack this d5 pawn. Actually, rook d1 is better. Okay, black trades, and I think that's a blunder. Yes, it is, and now the position has almost equalized. What an escape for Andy. Wow. And he has the time. He has 20 minutes to figure it out. He's still slightly worse, technically, but this looks like it's heading towards a rook ending. And this rook ending is probably drawn. Not easy still. Andy has to know his technique. And, well, kids sometimes don't know their endgames. So we'll see if he does. Very interesting. We'll let Andy think for a few seconds and go to the other live game, which is Thurman versus Kavutskiy. Kavutskiy has made some progress. Wow. Wow, maybe Kostya will be able to get a great escape here. Nope. Maybe I'm just biased. My good friend Kostya, he's in trouble. Oh man. I have a funny story about Kostya. He once prepped me for an opening line 22 moves deep, and I played all 22 moves of it against a player that we knew their coach and we knew the exact variation they would play. And I'd never even played the opening before. He just prepped me for it, and I remembered it, and we played it in the game. And I ended up winning. I missed some easier wins earlier in the game, but I saw an endgame win that I could go for, so I went for that one. Anyway, so Kostya is trying to survive, but it looks like his king is cut off, and white's king can easily walk in here. I think that might be the problem. And black's king can't get away from the pawn. So if black could place king c3 here without losing the pawn, then it would be fine. But welcome if you just joined us. We are checking out the Hollywood Norm Classic. This is the Grandmaster section that we're looking at. So these players are looking for Grandmaster norms. And Seth Thurman is definitely playing up. His rating is around 2,300. Like 2319 or 20 or something like that. Or maybe it's a little higher now. But obviously it's going to improve, because if he can get a win against an IM, and Kostya's a pretty strong IM. He's not a weak player at all. Well, is any IM, right? Sorry, Isaac, I didn't see your comment about knight d7. Let's go back to that game real quick. E7. Okay, a few more moves have been played here. So Andy takes the d6 pawn. And what is going on now? Rook h2, rook b2. Rook h2 is tempting, but then there's knight f4, I think. Yeah. So then rook b2, there is rook b6. Can black take on... Oh, no, you can't take on d5 because now pawn takes d5. Rook h3, and then I don't think it's a big deal that black is winning the h3 pawn there. Black still has a small advantage here, so don't put it past a Grandmaster to play this out in time pressure, right? Like, he's a Grandmaster for a reason. But if you run this at a longer depth, a rook b2 was played, so kind of what I thought was going to be played. And rook b6. Okay, so Andy just gives the pawn. Interesting. So 97. Is there a draw here now with knight f5? It looks like it was a mistake to give the... So I think Andy moved a little fast. He had some time here. I mean, he could have tried to find the right move here. Which is king f4. Wow. King f4 is the drawing line because of rook takes b3 and then knight e3. What's the difference between going knight e7 and knight e3? Maybe because you can come around to g4 instead of going to f5? That's super confusing. Is bishop e4 any good? What game was that in Kostya? Well, the problem with bishop e4 here, Isaac, is that playing f5 is going to happen soon. Probably. Well, maybe not, though. Maybe bishop e4 is fine for the moment. Let's take a look real quick. Bishop e4. Oh, in this position, yeah. So bishop e4. The white king just walks around. So the problem is that I think if this is ever played, now you can play f5, and the king is not in contact with the rook. And then the pawn just runs. So it's really hard to free the king from in front of the pawn. Yeah, this is still lost, sadly. Sadly for Kostya, he's having a tough tournament. Poor guy. I feel so bad. Okay, let's go back to this game, because this is definitely the game of the day. I think the game of the whole day. Because if Andy can escape this position, then, well, then he'll just be in good shape still. Let's take a look real quick. Well, no, moves are coming. Moves are coming. Rook c3. I mean, this is wild. I don't really know what's going on, frankly. Okay, so the most obvious move is rook a5, rook c4, and then king h4. Is that even possible? There's like discovered attacks that do things. They go somewhere. I don't know. So Andy did take a5. And oh, everything that I just said happened. Rook c4, king h4, and now what? What does black play now? King f6, then knight g8. Rook c1 is also an option to get ready to push. This might be losing now for white. This is either losing or there's a technical draw here. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. This game is a good illustration that when you have practical pressure, you could play inaccurately according to say like computer standards, but still get the win unless unless you're playing against a super strong player that's going to find like the top computer line, right? But when you're playing a mere mortal, even a grandmaster, right? Like you're playing, or even an international master. Andy's an international master, right? He's making small inaccuracies. Oh, king f6. Well, I appear to be predicting every single move here, so every single move belongs to me. Knight g8, check, or going back this way, but that looks dangerous. Maybe you have to come back this way to try to stop the pawn. Oops. Oh, he went knight g8. King g7, knight e7. All right, it's heating up. GM Mckaylan is not going to take a draw, I don't think. He's gonna go for the win here. But he's just grabbing some extra time. Sorry, my hips keeps hurting here. Sitting too long. All right. I'm comfortable. Hopefully you're comfortable, everybody. All right. So knight g8, check. He's going to gain that extra time. Go king g7 one more time. Wait, will that be a draw? No, I'm probably going to go king e5 now. Yeah, there we go. We got it again. Predicting Grandmaster moves. Okay, see if you can predict the next one, Isaac. Get the Grandmaster move. And the audience, anybody that's watching this after the fact. That's going to be on the YouTube forever. Anybody that's watching this after the fact, what is white going to play here? King g5? King g5, h4, h5, trying to push the pawn. King g3 to try to come back. I mean, that seems like a... Knight h6, the first one that I did not get. Knight h6 in order to go knight g4 maybe. But that doesn't look very good. This is starting to look not so great. The white king is actually in a little bit of trouble over here. You predicted knight e7. Well, we both missed it, so don't feel bad. Knight h5 or knight h6, I don't really fully understand. It's got to be to go back to g4 check and then come back out this way, or at least to block the king, but doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, this is a really exciting game. Is Kostya surviving? No. White found the correct plan here to play. You know, one thing I don't get is why can't they just sack it off and then push? Is it because of this check? Oops. Sorry. Yeah, one thing I don't get here is after f5, why they can't just take. It's black to move now, though. Oh, white to move, f5, okay. So they can't take. And taking, if they can't take, then it's game over. Like, if takes, I think there's this move. Rook. Oops, it's black's move. If pushing pawn, rook e7 check. And now the king is shunted out of here. And anywhere you go, this king is coming in. And then you get something like this, where you lose the pawn. So, yeah. Welcome if you just joined us. This is Coach Q. I am reviewing the Hollywood Norm Classic games. Looking at this game here between Kostya Kavutskiy, one of my great friends, and FIDE Master Seth Thurman. Poor Kavutskiy is getting beat, or is just getting pushed around in this tournament. He lost 2 games in a row. And this looks like it's going to be his third, because White has the right technique. Let's go back to this game, the game of the day, the Woodward Mckaylan game. International Master Andy Woodward, 10-year-old International Master, by the way. 10-year-old, 2486. He is fighting for his life against Grandmaster Mckaylan, and he's worse. This is going to be an uphill battle to get all these pieces out of the way and push the pawn, whereas Black has a very quick way to push his pawn. So, yeah, I think this is starting to slip into the losing territory. Because White does have knight g4 check here, but then after king f4, White's going to lose another tempo, because the knight will be en prise. Rook a7 is also another option here. Maybe to get behind the pawn, or just to try to win the f7 pawn. But that doesn't make sense, because the pawn can just push. So, also, rook f1 looks good here too. Just to guard, because you can always push this pawn to c4. Yeah, it's looking worse. Looking quite a bit worse for Black. Let's go back to the International Masters section and see who's still playing. Still 2 games playing here too. FIDE Master Mighty versus Lee. Lee is the lower rated player, so Mighty is definitely a little bit better here, and it looks like they're trading B pawn for A pawn here. But the knight is en prise, so king e6, knight takes h6. I don't quite know what's going on there. If you guys see a good move, jump right in. Tell me what you think. I mean, this is probably really bad for White. Okay, that's an overstatement. It's only -1, so White must have a technical way to hold this, but I am not seeing that. I am certainly not seeing that. This will be a nice game. Oh, they both have less than a minute though. Wow. That's pretty interesting. This is like basically a bullet game now with increment. Haha, love it. Let's check out the other one. Rushawn Mahajan, Candidate Master versus FIDE Master Austin May. This looks like it's dead drawn, so let's go straight back to one of those games. So let's keep on this game, and we'll keep the Mckaylan versus Andy Woodward. So yeah, Mckaylan did find the rook f1 plan, which gets the rook out of the way preemptively, which is really nice here. Yeah, sad. It looks like Andy's going to lose this one, but that's okay. He's got to learn somehow, so. But who knows? You know, Mckaylan is still in time pressure. Less than a minute. It does look quite challenging. Rook f5, king h6 played instantly. Rook f4 played instantly. Okay, rook d8 check. The knight is still en prise, so this king has to move king e3. Oh, king can't play to e3. It's guarded. Ha! Okay, I'm getting tired. King C. Where does the king go here? King E4. Yeah, that's like the only other square. We just had a move in this game too. Um, they took. They traded the. So white went knight G7, check, and king D5. Rook takes B7, and rook takes A4. They traded the B for the A pawns, like I thought. Okay, back to this game. What does Woodward play after king E4? King H5 is not possible because the knight is hit twice. So, oh wow. Andy is sacking the knight, but I think that will lose. I don't think that has really much chance of holding. Yeah, I mean, Woodward is looking for the draw here, but it's not going to come. This will be lost. I don't see how Andy is going to be able to hold this one. Maybe he wants this position where he goes back king h6. Then there are some draws, like rook d, some mad rook sacrifices here, like rook d5. But with 3 minutes on the clock, Grandmaster Mckaylan is not gonna allow that. We just had a move in the mighty Lee game. Knight. So we had knight e8, bishop d4, rook d7, check. This is still looking very good for black. I honestly don't know how white is going to hold this. Okay, it's starting to slip. It's like -3 now, so I think white is starting to lose there. So Grandmaster Mckaylan goes for bishop g6. I mean, it's probably winning because the king is stuck on the h-file, and now black has 2 pawns. That's a nice practical decision by Grandmaster Mckaylan because it looks like, white is just asking to stalemate here. So what do you actually play? And bishop g6 cuts off the g7 square. Pretty nice, actually. Pretty nice. That's a nice practical technique here. And then this pawn is really powerful. Yeah, I think that's why he went for this, because it's really easy to push this pawn. And the rook can even swing behind it. Yeah, that's almost over there. Let's take a look at the other games now. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Kosha got a rook versus knight ending. Wow. I mean, this is probably... I mean, looking where the king is, this is probably winning, but... I mean, this is not easy to win. A rook versus knight ending is not easy to win. They don't have times anymore. I don't know what that means. Oh, they were gone for a second. I think they just reset the times. So 4 minutes to 27 minutes. And Kostra's trying to hang on with the knight versus rook ending. Very nice practical decision. How did this happen? Let's take a look. Okay. So he did sack the bishop for the pawn. It was possible. What? How is it possible? So this is a nice decision here under promotion, because you cannot promote to a queen. If you promote to a queen, it will be mate. Wow. Really, really interesting. Yeah, Isaac said about the Andy Woodward game, B and C pawns are monsters, desperate, sadly. Yeah, it is desperate, and yeah, I don't think he's going to survive there. But now our friend Kostya has a chance. Okay, it's coming to this position. I mean, does FIDE Masters to Thurman know how to win a rook versus knight? It's technically possible, but it's super hard. I can't say I even know how to do that. Wow, this is the table base is saying it's a dead draw now. What an escape! A Houdini escape! Exactly what International Master Kavutskiy needs. I apologize to FIDE Master Thurman, but Kostya is the main man. He's my buddy. That's the guy. He knows a lot about chess, and I have learned a lot from him. So I am hoping he can bounce back. And this is exactly what he needs. Wow. That might be a draw. That's pretty nice. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Andy resigned, sadly. Let's take a look at the final position. Oh, after rook takes g6, he just resigned. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's go back to the International Master Games. Unless Kostya makes a huge mistake, it's going to be a draw. And this is Lee, FIDE Master Mighty. And Mighty is now winning. This pawn is pretty strong. And the computer seems to think there's a way to hold on here, but for practical purposes, this looks like it's very challenging to. But maybe there is like some sort of trade all the pawns and sack the knight for the c pawn. That is possible, and that's what White's going for here. So I mean, we might be seeing a couple good escapes here, where we wrote the player off and then never resign, right? Like just keep going all the way to the end. Never give up. Yeah, I know, right? Kostya, Isaac said, "Wow, good game, Kavutskiy." And yeah, I know the under promotion is nice. I love it. I love the under promotion. It's beautiful. What a night to tune in. You get to see an under promotion, and now you get to see. Hopefully, you get to see a sacrifice, a piece for a pawn to win the endgame. Welcome if you're just joining us. We are looking at the Hollywood GM and IM Norm Classic, played in beautiful and sunny Hollywood, California, with some very strong players, sponsored by 1000 GM, the 501c3. Consider donating to them because they are bringing you some amazing chess right now. We just saw an under promotion, and now we're seeing a very nicely executed technical endgame where White is trying to trade all the pawns on the king side to sack a piece for the final pawn and get the draw. So very nice technical endgame that White is playing. Let's look at the other one, Rushawn Mahajan versus Austin May. And it looks like Mahajan has won a pawn, but the black king is super active here. I can't see this being anything but a draw. Let's go back and just make sure that Kostya is actually going to get the draw here. So the last move was rook e2, and now knight c3. Are there any threats here? The knight and the king are kind of far apart now. Table base says this is still a draw. You never know, though. There are a lot of ways to mess this up, so we will see. Really interesting. If you didn't see it, I'll replay it for you guys. So Kostya found a really nice way, I am Kavutskiy, to get this under promotion. Because if you promote to a queen, let's just actually show it this time. There's a checkmate here with the rook and the king. So the under promotion, though, to a knight makes a check, correct, right? And yeah, and then Isaac says never resign. Yes, never ever resign. Just keep trying. You're going to see knight d1 again. And this must be a fortress type position that's known. I don't think I didn't really know this ahead of time because I haven't looked at this endgame in forever. But very nice. Very, very nice. Okay, my dog Iggy is coming to join the stream. She is sitting straight on my lap. Okay. Let's go back to the IM section. Mahajan is still trying to win here, but it doesn't look like it's going to win. The black king is just too active here. Let's look at the mighty game. Now white is trying to push the pawn. And I think it's black that's going to have to sack. I thought white would trade all the pawns and then sacrifice for the piece, but I didn't actually calculate that. But now it looks like white team is trying to push this pawn, and the only way to draw is going to be to sack the knight, the piece. So we'll see a draw there. Let's see this one through to the end, with Seth Thurman missing his win. Poor Seth Thurman. He was about to beat an international master here, and it looks like he's given up the draw. So let's actually take a look at the standings here for this section. For the Hollywood Chess Grandmaster Norm tournament. And let's see here. Can you guys see that? Okay. So Matavishin took a quick draw and is now tied for first. And Mckaylan, what did he do? I just forgot. No, I forgot. We were just looking at it. What did Mckaylan do? Oh yeah, won the nice game against Andy. So that's a no easy feat because Andy is very strong. Robert has 2.5. Is in clear third place. And then there's a bunch of twos: Griffith, Sorokin, Woodward. So I am Griffith, Grandmaster Sorokin, and I am Woodward are all on what is that? +1. Oh no, even scores. Yeah, because Woodward was +1, and sadly he lost. So Thurman's going to draw. He'll be on even, and Segment is -1, and Kostya will survive and not be -3. So that is nice for him. I am very happy that he's able to escape there. But don't count it out yet, because this is a tricky endgame, so he could make a mistake at some point. Okay, let's go back over here. This is clearly the most interesting game right now, so let's stay on this one. The Hunching Lee and the FIDE Master Milind Mighty as black. Lee trying to hold on here. Being down a pawn for a very long time. Tough defense. So King D3 was just played. What is White's plan here? Can White play F6? I don't think so because of Rook F5 check. So then the other idea is, oh, King G4, maybe this way. King G4. And then you're threatening to push, right? I mean, maybe something as simple. Oh, you can't play King G4 because the knight's hanging. I'm silly. Okay, lead ticking down to 8 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Did they take a draw? Uh-oh, Lee ran out of time, but I don't think that's accurate. Probably a draw was offered. Maybe because just like Rook H7. And once you take this pawn off the board, then the knight can just sack for the pawn. Knight F2 check. Right. Oh, it was a draw. I missed this. Okay, so this was a draw. Knight F2 check, just a repetition. Okay, so I was completely wrong about that position. There's no like trying to push the pawn, and you just take a draw here with these checks. Why can't you go somewhere else? Like, what about like King B3? Oh, then they just lose the pawn. Okay. What about with? Okay, there's nowhere to go without losing the pawn. And it looks like black is still moving the knight around. This one could go for a long time. Ghost just being tortured. That's the payment he has to pay. He has to endure the torture. Sorry, my scrolling is not working properly. He has to endure the torture in order to achieve the draw, right? He has to pay in his blood, sweat, and tears to get this half point, right? Because this ending is, not simple, right? There's a lot happening. And there's a lot of ways that white can trick black into losing the knight. But it looks like that black has achieved what's a fortress position then. This knight has just been going back and forth and back and forth, so we're pretty close there. And that game is already over. Is there one more game? Oh, yeah. There's the Mahajan-May game. So this is the final game of the IM section as well. And it looks like it's petering out to a draw. This pawn is not enough because the king can come in front of it. And, excuse me, the rook can cut off. All right. Thanks for joining, Isaac. I really appreciate that. Come back, watch a bunch of the videos. There's a lot to learn from them. We got Grandmaster Akobian analyzing a lot of positions, so a lot of free lessons for you there. So go check them out, and go check out the interviews. They're a lot of fun. Yeah, this one's going to be a draw, so let's look at the standings. So here are the standings. So Grobinski is a half point ahead of everybody. To be expected, he's one of the higher rated players in the group. Ostrovsky is also one of the higher rated players, has 3. So he's on +1. Grobinski's on +2. Yeah, +2. Ru Yang Yan has 2. Mighty's about to draw. Did they already draw or about to draw? Mighty already drew, so Mighty has a decent score of 2 out of 4. Gedaljvik has 2. A bunch of people with 2. Grandmaster Batoon with 2. Grandmaster Rushawn Mahajan with 2. Lee is about to be on 1.5, and May as well. And the only player without a win is Singhania with half a point. Still on the board at least, though. Still on the board. Okay, let's go back to just watching. Let's just casually watch this game finish. The knight versus rook endgame. A dead draw, but never easy. Never easy. Never easy. It might have already been drawn now. Oh, no, it hasn't. King d3 was just played. So they're still going up. Sorry, everybody. They are still going. Still going. 87 moves. Deep into the night. Deep into the Hollywood night. The darkness. Okay, knight d1. Kosha not making any mistakes. Trying to stay alive here. Paying for that half point. Paying for that extra half point. All right, we'll see Coach to play King E8 here. King is in check. King E8 is the best move. Rook E8 check. Thurman is just gaining some time here, I think. But every move he's getting closer to the 40 move draw rule, so this will likely be a draw shortly. A 40 move, I'm sorry, 50 move draw rule. Where was the last? So the pawn promotes here. That's move 69. So 50 moves will be 119. Are we really going to have to wait till 119? Oh, man. FIDE Master to Thurman is torturing poor Kavutski. He's like, why did you steal the win from me? I can't believe it. I can't believe you stole that win from my mouth. Actually, while we're waiting for them to just do this one out, I know this position is completely winning. So I thought that Rook E7 had to be played here. Let's see. This position is dead drawn, so pushing the pawn is dead drawn. Oh my gosh. So white just can't push the pawn yet. That is... Wait, where was the mistake here? Oh, so King G4 is a mistake. Wow. That move... Okay, they just agreed to a draw. I want to see this, what the best plan is here. Wow. White has to keep the black king out here with King F2. Once the black king gets in, it's drawn. That is wild. I am kind of flabbergasted by that. King D3. Let's just click through an engine line. I want to see what the main idea is. Man, you just have to be super patient. Eventually you'll get it. Eventually the pawn will get through. So this analysis goes from here. So here you have to play King F2. King G4 was a blunder. So King F2 is forced. And then King D3. And you just have to maneuver for like ever to get to the correct position. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And so all the games are done now. And I think they're done here. Let's check. Who's still playing here? Okay, all the games have finished. All right, one more look at the standings, and then I'll sign off for tonight. Grobinski in first with 3.5. And one more look at the standings here. And Matavishin and Mckaylan with 3 here. So Victor Matavishin is on track right now, looking for a GM norm for sure. He's an IM. Mckaylan's a GM. Robert's an IM too. He's not that far off, but he's only on +1. Matavishin's on +2, so that gives him a pretty good shot at going for the norms. So that concludes round 4. Very exciting round. We saw under promotions, we saw sacrifices, we saw some very nice play, and really good games. So I will see you tomorrow. I'll be on again tomorrow at, I believe, the same times, 12:30 and 7. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate that, and thank you to 1000 GM, the 501c3 that's bringing all of this to you and making top-level chess possible in America, adding to the really great pantheon that we have of St. Louis Chess Club, Charlotte Chess Club, Washington Chess, New York Chess. So really upping the game and bringing some more very strong, very strong chess tournaments, top level players, Grandmaster norms, International Master norms. So thank you for joining me. I'm Coach Q, expert Coach Q, and Dylan Quersha, that is. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you again next time.